What up, gang? Let's try this again here. Hopefully, we got a little bit better of a network connection. So, one of our videos from a couple weeks ago was talking about the progression that we see a lot of times. So, it started with ear infections and worked its way into allergies, pooping issues, sleeping, autism, ADHD. And so, wanted to dig a little bit deeper here. Because as I said, I think in that video, the past couple months we've had a ramp up of cold and flu symptoms, and a lot of times the course or the traditional approach is to go for antibiotics. And so in that previous live, we talked about how antibiotics, what they do is they kill off all of the bacteria in our gut. And so hanging out in our gut, we actually have what's called the microbiome, all right? And this microbiome, what it is, it's bacteria, it's fungi, it's viruses. And what those things do is they're really important for helping us not only to break down our foods, but to get the nutrients to where we need it in our body, all right? Hey, Christian. So we need those bugs in our tummy to help us do the things that we do. So there's been a lot of research out lately, specifically looking at the microbiome, all right, and what kinds of things we can see if there is some alteration in those bugs that hang out in our tummy. So first and foremost, what we see here in the office, if there is some sort of assault on the tummy, I guess. Hey, Sarah. We are, so metabolic conditions like diabetes, obesity, a lot of neurodevelopmental things, depression, anxiety, bacterial infections, viral infections, the whole list. And so I actually have a quote here. It's from an article. And it says, the gut microbiome takes advantage of the channels our body uses to send messages between different organs. The bacteria's normal life functions produce byproducts called metabolites that move through the stomach lining, enter the bloodstream, and are transported throughout the human body. Depending on the type and number of bacteria in a gut microbiome, different types and numbers of metabolites are delivered to the brain and other parts of the host body. So, specifically talking about the research that goes into the microbiome, a lot is being done right now looking at its implications in pregnancy and in during gestation. So when babies are in the womb, the thought was that their microbiome, that their gut, their tummy was clean, was essentially a sterile environment. That is the old way of thinking. We now know that in utero, baby is actually swallowing amniotic fluid. It is getting nutrients, and not just nutrients, but the viruses, bacteria, the fungi that mom has. Baby is actually taking that in through the placenta. All right? And so what we're seeing with preterm babies is babies don't develop their gag or their swallowing reflex until later. And so we actually have a couple new preemies in our practice. And so this is what really prompted me thinking this. When babies haven't developed that swallowing reflex yet, which happens later in gestation, they're not able to swallow the amniotic fluids, the stuff from the placenta. They're not able to get all of that. And then a lot of times too, babies are not actually, preterm babies are taken via C-section, and so they're not passing through the birth canal. And so they're not getting the exposure. And then to add on top of that, a lot of times what happens is they give those preemie babies antibiotics because they want to prevent them from, or they want to try and stop them from getting some of those really nasty infections. All right. So it's just one assault after another on an already compromised system. All right. So I'm not sharing this to tell you that antibiotics are bad. Really, I want you to have the most information possible so that you can make a decision, because there are times when an antibiotic is needed. And then there are times when they have a lot of other health implications. Here's a really cool article that I read. There are two of them. So first one is actually talking about how they are looking at the use of antibiotics and their correlation with autism. So in this study, 3/4 of the kiddos with autism also had digestional issues. Obviously, more research needs to be done because correlation does not equal causation, right? Not saying that the antibiotics cause the autism, but there is a definite link with tummy stuff, constipation, upset issues, gas, diarrhea, all of that stuff can be tied to it. The other really cool study that I saw, research being done right now, is looking at the bugs in the tummy and how they affect personality. There was, in this study, they were actually looking at lab rats. And so they looked at the guts in the tummy of these very anxious, hyperactive rats, and then they looked at the bugs in the tummy. And I say bugs, hopefully that I don't actually mean bugs or bad stuff. They looked at the microbiome in the lab rats who were calmer, and they found a distinct difference. They did that very same thing in 2-year-olds. Those kids who were very withdrawn and socially awkward and regressed had very different microbiome than the kids who were more outgoing and social and really digging into stuff. So like I said, I'm not sharing this to convince you that you shouldn't use antibiotics. I'm sharing this so you have information and you really understand how important the stuff that hangs out in your gut is. And then, not to mention, this is, I guess, kind of going back on a tangent when we were talking about antibiotics and the ramifications they have on your gut. Then you add on it the environmental load that we all do with the gluten, the dairy, the soy, the processed crap that we eat. And our tummy is taxed to the max. And so if you have been on a round of antibiotics or your kiddos have, then more than ever is it important that they're getting real foods, not that garbage. All right? See you later.